Star Trek Picard Season 1 was our first look at what the Star Trek universe was like after the events of Nemesis. But many things seem to change from script to screen. We'll be looking at concepts from art to interviews for Picard's premiere season and what we might have got instead. Welcome to Trek Central. I'm your host Helen, and let's get into it. Before we warp into this video, if you want to keep up to date on all the latest Star Trek news, lore, and more, then make sure to hit that subscribe button to never miss a video from the team here at Trek Central. You can also follow us on social media for daily updates on the Star Trek universe. As always, please let us know your thoughts in the comments section below, because if you're talking about Star Trek, then we want to hear about it. Okay, engage. As we all know, the attack on Mars in canon was perpetuated by rogue synths, A500 models, seemingly hacked by the Zhat Vash to destroy Utopia Planitia and the Romulan relocation fleet, causing the synth ban which the Zhat Vash desired. However, this was not the case originally, with concept art showing us new Romulan bombers attacking the planet instead. There is also concept art of Picard being on the planet when this happens, as well as the location where they build the synths underground on Mars. This might mean that the Romulans find out that the synth labour is being used to help them relocate, and they attack Mars themselves? Definitely some interesting ideas, with Picard in an EVA suit on the Martian surface watching as Romulan bombers fly by attacking the surface. Why would Picard be in an EVA suit on Mars? Perhaps reviewing the synth production and then having to flee the planet when the attack starts? With the only way literally spacewalking to a ship to flee, perhaps due to Romulans running transporter interference? There is some art of Picard and another hanging onto a rope, so we could have gotten some tense action scenes here. This possibly would have made Picard's grief even more tangible, having to flee the planet while so many people die there, being one of the only survivors. The actual look of the Utopia Planitia ground facilities is almost one-to-one what the concept art envisioned for it, which is pretty cool to get some cool art of it, and then how it actually looks in the show. In Season 1 of Picard, we get a Romulan focus, to the artifact being run by the new free Romulan states, to the Zhat Vash conspiracy, the hidden cabal underneath the Tau Shi'ar. But we could have gotten even more of a focus on the Romulans and how their empire has gone since the supernova of the Romulan sun, and the destruction of their seat of government, Romulus. There are concepts floating around of a Romulan cruiser called the Scarpa Varia, a ship which, though it does not state this, feels like a ship which could house a government in exile, or a Senate ship. The ship was said to be 5,000 feet in length and 1,750 feet in height, and two oval-like structures connected through a central strut which housed the ship's engines. The bridge module would be located on the lower oval structure, and the top oval structure would have resort domes. The fact it even has resort domes makes me think it's a pleasure cruiser, but for Romulan Senate. Perhaps the ship they evacuated on and housed their government in. There is even some concept art of the bridge of the ship, looking very Romulan in its design, as expected. However, how would they have incorporated this into the story? Well, it seems like this was a pretty big project in pre-production for the show, so it was probably a big feature of the scripts in early drafts before being cut. As we've seen previously, it wasn't the synths that attacked Mars, but actually the Romulans themselves. So perhaps we could have seen a section of Picard Season 1, with Picard actually meeting with the people who ordered the attack. This could then go into the idea of how the Romulan Senate was probably okay with fleeing Romulus itself, but not doing anything for the citizens stuck on the planet with no ways off. This idea of at least seeing the interior of the ship does have some credence, with concept art of the bridge as we saw previously, but also of the corridors of the ship, which are large and spacious and could be done with green screen. In some interviews with Akiva Goldsman, a producer on Star Trek Picard, it was discussed that the character of Bjayzl, the one that harvested Borg components for money and funded one of Bruce Maddox's laboratories not on Coppelius, was going to be a Caitian. Her parlour would be an aviary, which would have had many birds inside which she would feast on. Hopefully this would have looked better than the other live-action appearances of felines on TV. However, it seems there was another form of Bjayzl existing in even earlier drafts of the show, where she was a member of the First Federation, the same species that Baylock was in the original series episode The Carbamite Maneuver. How we would have identified Bjayzl as First Federation is unknown. Perhaps actually being in their space or something, but it's a good idea, and hopefully we see more of Baylock species, or the First Federation in general, in New Trek. Now, what if I told you there was meant to be a stronger Starfleet presence in the first season of Star Trek Picard than we eventually got? Well, it seems the design of the Inquiry class made by John Eaves was meant to be seen in the series much earlier than the copy-paste fleet of the finale. Around episode 6 or 7 of the series, there was meant to be a Starfleet ship which required a gargantuan cargo bay at the front, which is why the Inquiry class has a forward-facing shuttle bay on the floor of its saucer. The cargo bay was said to be 400 feet across, which would be enough room for the La Sirena to fit inside. So perhaps, originally in the script, the La Sirena would have docked with the Starfleet ship, perhaps a routine inspection or Picard reaching out for Starfleet aid from a nearby ship. The Inquiry-class ship of this episode was not meant to be an important ship, however, just a background ship. The script was changed, and as we know, no Starfleet ship appeared in episode 6 or 7. However, we do know that the Inquiry class appeared in the finale, and was a last-minute addition, it seems. The team only had a couple of weeks to bring this ship to life, and add it to the finale, which explains why we only have one class of ship in that final fleet, and only 4 variants of that. Luckily, they learned to diversify the fleet in season 2 of the show. The Zhenghai style of ship would not be the only design considered for the finale, with the Colt Zhou class also being considered, which was basically the Zhenghai class but with cutouts in the saucer. Another interesting thing in the finale, which was actually shot but for some reason cut, was after the incident at Coppelius, Starfleet security would come to the planet and arrest Narek, the Vulcan who had been assigned to Soji to find the synth homeworld. We can probably presume that this does happen, since he does just disappear at the end. But it's interesting that this scene was cut. Perhaps if there wasn't a showrunner change between season 1 and season 2, we would have gotten more to this story. But for the moment it seems like we won't be seeing Narek again anytime soon, if at all. In an Instagram story, the previous showrunner of Star Trek Picard, Michael Chabon, did say we would see more Romulan stuff in season 2, but it seems that plan did not come to fruition with the changes they did between seasons. Another scene that was shot but cut from the finale were the XBs and the synths forming together a community on Coppelius under the auspices of Soong. This would be nice to see. At least that these formerly assimilated cybernetic groups form a community with androids of machines, but also androids of flesh and blood that make up the Coppelius androids. Very much a mixture of machine and flesh in that community, which is nice. Though, don't know how to feel that they are under the auspices of Soong. But hopefully, Atlan Soong is a better man than the other Soongs, and can use his knowledge and experience to help this community. This would be a nice way to conclude Soong's legacy, from eugenics to cybernetics, giving his family line what they need to help these two people. Rafi's trailer in the Vasquez Rocks was meant to be much different originally, with a big community of these trailers being set up. The reason for this change from a number of trailers and a landing pad to a more lonely, singular trailer park was probably to better represent Rafi's loneliness and isolation much better. There is some concept art of Picard giving a talk on Data, perhaps a discussion of androids and their history, which would give us backstory into the synth ban and the attack on Mars. This might have been replaced by the Federation News Network interview which we see in the first episode of Picard, as they would serve the same expository function. There is some interesting concept art which can't really be placed, and that's what looks to be a Romulan planetary shield. This could have been what became the planetary shield at Vashti, since its planetary shield was Romulan in design, procured by the Fenris Rangers. Though, interestingly, this concept art has a structure on top, which looks like a hangar bay or something. So, could this be where the warlord Kar Kantar and his Romulan bird of prey stayed? He did lord over that region, so I wouldn't be surprised if in earlier drafts he was a more direct force for our crew. Props of season 1 and 2 of Star Trek Picard recently went for auction, and one of those items is called the Romulan Mother of All Disruptors, which is an interesting look, but we do not know where it would have appeared. As it's stated, this item was not shown on screen, and we know it didn't appear on screen. Perhaps this could have been a weapon employed by the Romulan rebirth movement, the Romulans on Vashti. Or perhaps even wielded by Zhaban at Chateau Picard when they were under attack by Tal Shiar kill squads. I think Zhaban would have been amazing if he was carrying this and fighting Tal Shiar goons. The Quantum Archives, where Starfleet keeps all their mementos, was going to look very different than the big open area we see in the show, with starship-like corridors leading to separate rooms, and Picard's own room being quite different, with some sketches making it look much more museum-like, with many pedestals to even having a computer console in the room, which Picard can use to retrieve other items that may be stored in the archive but not displayed in his room. Overall, Star Trek Picard Season 1 changed a lot from its first inception to when it finally came to our screen, with some changes happening extremely close to its release. Some changes might have been for the better, but some might have been interesting to develop in the show. But what do you think? Would you like to see a Romulan government in exile ship? A community of XBs and synths under Soong? Let us know in the comments below. If you want to keep up to date on all the latest Star Trek news, lore and more, then make sure you hit that subscribe button to never miss a video from the team here at Trek Central. You can follow us on social media or join our community Discord server. For now, I've been Helen. Thanks for watching and we'll see you next time. Live long and prosper, my friends.